Right, we will open up our waiting room here to folks. There we go. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us again for another Retail Insights session here. Very excited for this one. So, we are coming up on Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Pink Friday for our Boutique Hub members, and Christmas, Hanukkah, all the holiday season, which means your retail store is likely buzzing. And I wanted to create this session for you, a little bit of a departure away from the financial numbers, and talk a little bit more about training. And we can't do that without the mind of Mr. Bob Negan and Mark Weiss here from Management One. So thank you guys for joining us today.
Well,
Before we get
absolutely.
into the actual content here, a couple of housekeeping items. So one thing, we are recording this. If you do need to step away, not a problem. We are going to send out a recording to all of you. And the second thing is one of the great things about these sessions is this is live and totally interactive. So we want to hear your questions. Right down at the bottom of your Zoom window there is a Q&A button. At any time, please feel free and submit questions. And at the end, I'm happy to turn them over to Bob and Mark to record them. So if you're not familiar with Management One, thanks for joining us today and stopping in. Our main purpose here, especially with sessions like these, is to provide financial security for our people, our clients, and our affiliates. And we do that with a focus on merchandise intelligence and education for independent retailers like you. And we do those things with a main focus on our core values. And those are a generous heart, courage, curiosity, adaptability, commitment, and collaboration, like these sessions here. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Bob and Mark. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Nico. Bob, great to have you with us today. My mind has been really thinking so much about training in the past couple of weeks, coming back to Management One, retraining all our people, really thinking about how important it is to be involved with training and how your holiday season is gonna turn out. Won't just be about the product you bought, but how well you trained and worked with your people. I don't know anybody in retail that does a better job or knows more about training retailers than you do, Bob. So I'm just gonna let the conversation flow and let you start talking
Well,
what you love to talk about. And that's, helping retailers work with their people. Training, it's something to think about. You've developed programs that I hope you share with the people who are on board today. And it should be something that should be part of every retailer strategy for 2026, but it can also be spontaneous. And there's a lot you can do between now and the holidays to maximize the opportunity and come out of the season from our standpoint with not a lot of inventory, but having a lot of profitable sales. And that whole effort's gonna happen through your people. So
yeah,
I'd love you to just start to talk about that and share your wisdom and your ideas and how.
Sure. And thank you, Nico and Mark, for having me. I love talking about retail and I love talking about training. And we all know that the holidays are such an opportunity. But if your people don't know what they're doing, if they're not comfortable and confident on the floor, they're not going to give your customers the service that they deserve, and you're not going to make the money that you should make. So let's say, start with this premise. And Mark, you and I have talked about it, that really the only true competitive advantage that a local brick and mortar retailer has is the ability to create a tremendous human experience,
Mhm.
right? I mean, they can't get that online. They're not going to get that in a big box store. But when they come to your store, if you're here watching this and you're a local independent, your ability to make somebody get in the holiday spirit and feel good and really do the work necessary to match somebody up with their perfect gift so that they feel like a hero when it's all said and done. It's all about your people. And the mistake that people make is they hire somebody or they take their regular crew and maybe they don't hire their year-round crew or they hire part-time seasonal people. And then all of a sudden you have new merchandise and a new way of looking at things. Sort of the customers are coming at things differently and the people don't know what to do. So training is about making your people feel comfortable and confident talking to your customers on the floor. And so I did a Real Retail TV. Every week I send out a video blog on this exact subject, like I think 2 weeks ago. So if anybody's listening to this, you can go to whizbangtraining.com. But the title of it is the Down and Dirty Training Program, right? And so if you don't have time to put together an entire training program, or you don't have time to put your entire team through our Retail Sales Academy, here's what you can do. Down and dirty just for the holidays. Number one, policies and procedures. Just write them down. If it ain't written, it ain't real. So, what do people have to do to request time off? Where do you want them to park? What are your return policies? What does someone need to know to operate effectively in your business? And, just write it down. If you don't, again, if you don't write it down, it just is a rumor. So that's the first thing. The second thing is product training. And, clearly you can't train every SKU, but what you can do is pick your best sellers, or pick what you think are going to be best sellers for the holidays. And maybe you pick 20, 30, I don't know how much time you want to put into this, but write it down or make a video about, this is what this thing is. And, these are the features and benefits. This is who it's for. But give people that information so that they feel, again, comfortable and confident on the floor. So if you can do that with your holiday arrivals, your special holiday merchandise, your best sellers, sort of bring everybody back onto the same page about it, all of a sudden, just that alone is going to make a huge difference in your team's performance during the holidays. Because let's just recognize, if people don't feel comfortable, what do? They hide behind the register, right? They don't want to feel like a fool. Nobody wants to go out on the floor and get asked a question that they don't know the answer. And then the third thing is sales training. And there's really not time to do a full-blown sales training. But Mark, you guys offered to share a link to our holiday selling course. So there are tricks of the trade during the holidays. But if you can do a little bit down and dirty, if you can spend a morning putting together a document, or better yet, a video that you can share with those three things, your current team will get on the same page. Your part-time seasonal people will feel more comfortable. And just that little bit of work will make a big difference in the performance of your team.
Yeah, one of the things that you can do to implement that is have a daily huddle, have a morning huddle, even when the shift changes, have a huddle, have it be 10 or 15 minutes. But 10 or 15 minutes every day turns out to be 3 or 4 hours of training a week, almost a week's worth of training or more within a month. So those huddles are important when there's downtime in the store in between. There's always a gap after Thanksgiving before the Christmas rush starts again. And that's also a very good time to train. So I've seen a lot of retailers actually codify and have a specific plan with every huddle every day, where there's call outs on successes, there's call outs on new product, there's call outs on how we're what's working, what's not working, changes in the floor plan. So there's always activity every single day. It's the beautiful thing about retail is whatever you did on Monday that worked, you can repeat on Tuesday. Whatever didn't work on Monday, you can change on Tuesday. It's what actually drove me into the business.
Yeah.
I kind of actually remember I grew up in the business, and my dad, Christmas, when I get home from college, he had opened a new store, and I had to go out there and work it. And the people really weren't trained because they opened at Christmas time.
Right.
And, we did daily huddles, and it really, I learned a lot about the people, learned who needed coaching, who didn't, found out there was some exceptional talent there. But the huddles also give you a chance to interact with your people.
So I'm going to agree, but not disagree, but sort of challenge that a little bit. I absolutely agree that huddles are important, and I love, doing little games like having somebody sell their favorite item, or talking about what's the appropriate add-on for this bestseller, and all of these things. But to your point about if you do it every day over the course of a month, you're going to get a lot of training in. But this is the holidays, and over the course of a month, it's going to be the end of the holidays. So I love, and in general, I love to have it codified in a program, that shouldn't be for this down and dirty that I'm talking about. It shouldn't be more than a couple hours long, but give them that base, and then everything you do in person sort of amplifies and makes everything even better. So, I mean, but I absolutely agree with what you're saying. You being involved, you being engaged with your team is going to make such a difference in their performance and in your sales.
Yeah, and also when you do that, you're actually carving out the time, right? So you're saying that, it's scheduled, everybody's expecting it. It can be fun, it can be a rah-rah moment. So there's a lot of energy that can be generated from it. So that's a good way to get the day going, get the shift going. I know there's longer hours at holiday because the stores seem like they're open all the time. So but the point is you're actually creating time within the schedule to make sure you get it. And don't worry about the little extra payroll you're going to pay people. You should get that back in waves. And I think that would be a good thing to talk about too, Bob, because I think a lot of people get so, everybody's paying more per hour for salespeople than they've ever paid before. So everybody's really conscious about those. But there's a huge return on investment when your people are prepared.
Yeah, so I mean, being tight with your payroll at the holidays is dollar pound penny foolish. Or no, I said that the wrong way. No, I said that right.
You said it
Anyway, you
right.
know what I'm saying, right? It's not wise thinking, because now let's go back to this assumption. And this is an important assumption. If you make the assumption that you have good people who know what they're doing and are actually doing it on the floor, you should pay more for payroll, because typically during the holidays, you have more people in your store than you have people to help them. So the more people that you have in your store, it's the holidays. They're buying if they're trained, if they know how to sell, if they're adding on, show until they say no. I mean, every single, person you pay those dollars for that hour should come back in multiples. There are times when it's important to be very careful about your payroll, but you want to invest in your people and your payroll during the holidays. So I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah. So I think that when if you know if I were if I came to your kite store and because everybody knows Bob owned a kite store and it's a great story to tell. But if I were as a new person starting today and I was working seasonal holidays, what would be the three or four takeaways you want to burn in my brain so I could perform for you?
So if you were to perform for me at the Mackinac Kite Company, the number one thing is this idea of the perfect purchase. That is not about us, it's about them. That people are coming into our store to, buy for themselves, perhaps. A lot of people buy for themselves, but, being in the toy and kite business, we were, a lot of gifts. So ask lots of questions. The more you know, the better you serve. The better you serve, the more you sell. And the only way to know more is to ask lots of really, really good questions. And so that was, the best salespeople ask lots and lots of good questions. Who, what, why, where, when, how? Who's this for? What do they like? What do they like to do? How much do you want to spend? All of these things. So that's the first thing that I would do, is really make sure that they're focused on the customer and what the customer wants, and get them to this thing that we call the perfect purchase, or in the case of Christmas, the perfect gift. So, I mean, that would be the first thing, because that's going to really help get people to the right thing. The other thing that I would share, and this was a Mackinac Kite Company thing, and I know that not everybody does this, but some of our best clients, mutual clients do this, is I would have such a generous return policy. In my opinion, the best return policy an independent retailer could have is there is no return policy. If you're not happy with it, we are not happy yet. And so when you have that return policy, your people can sell with more confidence. Something like I'll just use it since we're using the Mackinac Kite Company, we used to sell a lot of games and we'd sell games with demonstration. We had like 5 tables set up in a row, little square tables. And if somebody was looking at a game, you'd walk up and say, "Hey, you want to learn how to play?" And we teach them. And then if people were hesitant, we would say, "Look, if you don't like the game, bring it back." They go, "Oh, okay." So that confidence to sell that way, that is, sort of the foundation of that is to really have a great return policy, customer-friendly return policy. Now, before we go on, I want to share something that is counterintuitive, but very interesting and valuable in this conversation. So we have a mutual client, Maureen Doran. So you know Maureen really well. And Maureen sells high-end women's clothing. And when Maureen joined our mastermind, she implemented this super, super generous return policy. And the fear that everyone has is that people are going to take advantage of you and your margins are going to go down from the quantity of the returns. What she found was when she made her return policy more generous, her returns actually went down. So for people who are listening here, you're going, "I can't do that. My people are going to take advantage of me." I just wanted to share that, to allay that fear.
Right.
And the
Well,
final thing that I want to share, hang on, I got one more here because this is really important. This is really
okay.
important. Uh, Impulse items. It should be I'm looking at everybody who's on this call. It should be a non-negotiable standard, meaning everybody does it every time, end of story, period, that someone is shown an impulse item at the register at the point of purchase. You will sell more stuff. "Hey, have you seen these red and green candles? Hey, have you seen this? This is really cool. Have you seen that?" Every single time with every single customer.
Yeah. Well, don't forget that I want to just talk a little bit about the return. I call it a philosophy instead of policy. But I would say that it also creates traffic for you. So, it gives you an opportunity to serve that customer again. So don't worry about the money you might have to return. Think about how do I get them re-involved? And it's not going to happen all the time, but it'll happen more than you think if you have that right attitude. The impulse item selling is critical. I mean, I think that it creates good selling skills because you learn to offer something up. If you've done all the right questioning, you're going to know. One of the things you and I have talked about before too is especially at holiday time, a lot of people aren't buying for gifts, they're buying for themselves. So understanding that, and you have the opportunity to make two sales out of one, right? One because they're buying for a gift and one because they're buying for themselves. If you could speak a little to that opportunity, that'd be great too.
Yeah, so let me speak to that real quickly because this is one of those nuances. So, we teach a system. I created a selling system at the Mackinac Kite Company. It's called the 6 Steps to the Perfect Purchase. And then there's the greeting, which is not "May I help you?" It's like, "Hey, you look like Santa Claus today. Hey, you look happy. Hey, you look," just establishing the fact that you're two human beings, you're on the same team, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just getting friendly, loosening it up, right? But then the next part of it, the second step is called questioning and listening. And the first part of questioning and listening is what's called the key question. And the key question is the question that exists to move the conversation from, "Oh, how's the weather?" to, "You're in this store for a reason. Let's talk about it." And so during the holidays, a key question, the holiday key question, in my opinion, is a choice key question. And you're giving them a choice. And you say, are you shopping for yourself or are you shopping for a gift? And so many people will laugh and they'll go, oh, I'm shopping for myself. Great. But when they answer that question, now it leads to other questions. So, Mark, you come into my toy store and we talk and I say, you're shopping for yourself or a gift, and you say, oh, I'm buying some gifts for my grandchildren. Huh, sales made, right? If I'm a good salesperson, so how many grandchildren do you have? How old are they? What do they like to do? Do they like games? Do they like toys? How much do you want to spend? No, how much are they worth? That's what I asked at the holidays. How much are they worth? Oh, they're worth a lot. All these questions. And so that whole idea of asking good questions, but that key question really sort of gets you off and running when you're on the floor during the holidays.
Speaking of grandparents, I was talking to a toy store retailer and we were just talking about events, and they have a grandparents' night during the holidays.
That's a great idea.
And she said it's really worked out to be something people look forward to. So in her community, a lot of the grandparents show up. A lot of them are new, they're newly retired or they're new, and they meet other people their same age. So they've friendships got created. And then they have, they built a community that they didn't expect to build, and they all hang out and they come back and they have the thing that brought them all together was the store. So the store wins, they win, and so having those kinds of events are important, but having your people prepared when those events happen is how you take advantage of those events. So if you're spending money on marketing and you're spending the time and effort to bring people in the store, you want to make sure that when they're there, they're well taken care of and looked after.
Sure. And, yeah, of course, you're right, Mark. You're always right about these things. But when you think about it, there's three ways to grow your business: get new customers, increase the average ticket, and then get them to come back in again and again, more
Right.
transactions per customer. But when you do an event like that, you're really, you're acquiring new customers, and new customers is the hardest part of the equation. The hardest thing and the most expensive thing is to get new customers. The easiest, but is to increase the average ticket, but there's a cap to it. I was never going to build my average ticket to $500 in a toy store, but then where the real money is in more transactions, because that leads to the lifetime value of a customer. But when you do something fun like that and you build a community that way, you're taking two of the three and you're just nailing it. And then that second part, average ticket, which is so important during the holidays, that's where all the training comes into play.
Yeah. Well, so in this particular story, she was telling me some of the grandparents actually became not just customers, but employees because they were looking for something to do and they like being around, kids and selling kid stuff. And so there's lots of opportunity to build on things. Connections happen, and sometimes we don't always pay attention to the connections and the opportunities that are driven through those connections. I want to talk a little bit about this time too in terms of driving traffic. Sometimes there's one way to drive traffic is to run sales, right?
Yeah.
And there's a tendency to do what's easy and let's run a store-wide sale. And that's not a healthy thing to do. If you took 20% off your store, that's a 25% hit on your gross margin. So 20% to the customer is 25% to you. So if something's $100 and you take 20% off, it's 80, but the markdown's 20 into 80 is 25%. So, I mean, I can walk through the math at another time, but be cognizant of that. The real key to running a sale is to sell the stuff that's not selling and to put it at a price you can sell it at. The double-edged sword to this is that you'll cherry pick and you won't get rid of the stuff you wanted to get rid of. You'll get rid of the stuff that you could have sold at full price. Then you got to go back and pay money to bring it back in. And so it's a real drain on cash. So be really thoughtful about your marketing, especially when it comes to pricing, because there's other things you can do. You can mark it down, bundle it into something else. There's lots of ideas. Bob, you have more tips and ideas on how to get rid of merchandise than anybody I've ever met. But again, going to the resources that Bob's developed over the years and all the tips, and he's a fountain of ideas. There's lots of opportunities for you to do lots of things from how you market to how you sell to how you create opportunities with your own products in the stores. So if you
So
could,
yeah, and let me just sort of highlight one of the most popular, and this is something I absolutely we can talk about two things because they kind of tie in together, is bundles. You mentioned bundles,
right.
and bundles are just such a great way to increase the average ticket, make it super easy for someone to buy, and it's super easy to sell. I won't tell the story about how I finally figured out that a bundle is valuable, but once upon a time, I was selling and, I sold this whole thing and then I was like, oh, how come I keep selling the same five things at once? And it was like, and it became our summer super special at $29.99. And then they just flew out the door because it was super easy. Once you understood that this was somebody was looking for a kite for their family and they wanted to spend, about $30, boom, you knew just where to go. But the best merchants are really looking at it's probably too late to buy into them now, maybe not, but they're looking to build bundles that have great margin. And then as the season progresses, you create bundles that have the stuff that is perhaps not moving quickly. And your point is absolutely spot on. Bundles is a great way to protect your margins, increase your average ticket, and go from there. So when we talk about bundles, I always, when I do this live, I say, so what is McDonald's famous for? And everybody goes, would you like fries with that? And they haven't, that's an add-on, right? And they haven't done that for how
There's your
many,
impulse item.
how many decades, but everybody knows the answer, right? Everybody knows the answer. And then I said, so then they increase their average ticket by creating a bundle. What's the bundle? Everybody knows it's the value meal. And now they add on to the value meal by supersizing it. And there's a lesson there for everybody who's watching this. And then the second part of that is signage. Signage is so important during the holidays. And it's important for a couple reasons. One, it's a silent salesperson, right? Again, let's go back to the idea that especially during busy days, you're going to have a lot more customers than you have team members to help them. So signage sort of helps people get an idea. It gets them thinking about things. It sort of it compresses the time needed to help a customer. There's another really nuanced benefit of signage too, and that's that it slows people down. When people are in a hurry, they get in the store and they, most, like in our downtown here, they're all long, skinny, 2,500-foot stores, right? And so, but people go in, they walk in the right, they go around, they come out, they walk out. And so your challenge as a retailer is to slow them down. And the more that you can slow them down, the greater the probability you're going to get a team member over there to sell them some stuff. So bundles and signage together, huge. I mean, it's a great way to sell stuff. Oh, I think
One
we
of the
have some
things
questions, Mark.
Well,
we do,
Bob, I would actually include QR codes on signage too.
That's a great idea, Nico.
Because there's a way you can alleviate some of the stress off of your salesman and digitize some of these things, whether it's a product description, a video, something like you said, to stop them in their tracks and keep them in the store.
Yeah, I wanted to mention something about the bundles. In the toy stores, these mystery boxes have become so powerful that we're actually now planning mystery boxes and surprise boxes. So even if you're not a toy store or a gift store, even if in an apparel store, you can still create mystery boxes and make it a surprise and
Pet
have fun with
stores,
it.
our best clients who are pet stores, oh man, they
Yeah,
sell
pet
a
stores.
lot. And, so it depends on the industry, but in the pet industry, they get lots and lots and lots of samples. I
Yeah,
mean, lots of samples. And they get a lot of vendor support. So they're creating
right.
mystery boxes that have amazing margins and they're an amazing value. The only thing that I want to say, because I was a victim of this once, is please don't put crap in your mystery box.
Yeah.
I, I've seen that,
Don't disappoint the
nothing will
customer.
kill the buzz faster than, yeah,
Yeah, make it fun, make it interesting. Make it a surprise, make it a true
yeah,
surprise.
exactly.
Yeah. Wow them. Did we have some questions?
Yes, so let me go. There was one earlier, and I think she was asking in context, so I don't know the context, but Marie asked, what if you're selling a product that is custom? So, Marie, with your permission, if I can open up your mic, you're more than welcome. Just give me permission in chat there, and I'm going to move on to the next question, but give me permission in chat to open up your mic, and I'm happy to have you ask your question directly to the panel. So the next question here is from an anonymous attendee. They're asking, when should I put my holiday merchandise on clearance?
Ah, that's a question for Mark.
Okay, I always say the sooner the better. And yeah, because it doesn't aid, inventory depreciates pretty quickly. So, as you're going through the season and you see your sell-throughs slow up, you should start marking them down. That's why I don't believe in blanket markdowns. Be surgical, be specific, go as deep as you need to go to get rid of it. It creates cash and start flowing in new goods. You can certainly start bringing in some spring and resort goods. People want fresh, people want new. Um, in planning, we plan for a fresh flow even during sale times. So you get a mix of both selling regular price and sale, but the sooner the better. And don't wait because it doesn't become any more precious. I know some
It
people,
doesn't become any more precious.
and I know some
People,
people.
but don't they, Mark? They just hold on to margin. It's like, I can't mark this down $3. It's going to cost me $3. Ladies and gentlemen, your store is not a museum. Mark could speak to this in numbers, in the language of numbers, but your store is not a museum. Get rid of it.
I think that people want to hold on to margin, hold on because they're afraid of returns, and they something that they bought is now marked down. That don't make your decisions based on that. People spend more money the 10 days after Christmas than any other time during the year. So if you're not on sale taking advantage of that, you don't have new stuff to sell along with it, you're missing out on all the cash because a lot of presents are cash.
A
So
lot
you
of
just miss out on 10 days of the best selling that exists.
And here's something else that's worth talking about is I believe that returns are an opportunity. So let's go back to this idea of the perfect purchase, right? So if somebody came into Nico's store and bought a gift and it wasn't perfect, I don't want that person to hold on to it. So when they come in and look for an exchange, what it means was that it wasn't a perfect gift. And so now you have the opportunity to make it right. The mistake people make is, how would you like that return? Would you like it in cash, or how did you pay for it? No, 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 no. Why didn't they like it? It could be as simple as it didn't fit. Well, good. Let's get it so it could fit. A lot of people call it saving the sale. So
Right.
when somebody comes in, don't assume you have to give them the cash back or give them a credit on their credit card. Assume that it wasn't right in the first place. And then not only can you make it right and make that customer happy, but to your point, there's sell them some more stuff, right?
Make it
They're
right and
in
make
your
it better.
store, you're talking to them, show them stuff, show them the things that are on sale. Our clearance table is in the back left. I mean, use it as an opportunity. To your point, lots and lots of traffic. Take advantage of it.
Sure.
All right. I always love doing this. So Marie has agreed to hotter mic. I'm gonna turn it over. Let me turn that on there and unmute. There we go. All right, Marie, you had a question about a custom item.
Yes, so I'm in the formal wear industry, specifically custom bridal gowns. We do sell off the rack, and then we do custom gowns as well. We also sell prom dresses, mother of the bride. An industry like mine, it's a little bit more difficult to offer a flexible return policy. We actually typically most of us businesses don't offer refunds or exchanges at all, just because of the custom nature of the product. So, how do we address that situation? How do we build trust? Because a lot of times customers will come in and say, geez, I can't return it, so I have to make sure that I love it. So can you share a little bit more about what we can do to ensure that trust so that the customer not just wants to buy their gown, but they want to buy their veil, their headpiece, their mother of the bride dress, their bridesmaids? Just looking for some insight on that.
Sure. You want me to take it or you want to take it, Mark?
Oh, go for it.
So, this is the idea of the perfect purchase, Marie. So, if your people do you or and your team, if you do an amazing job of making sure that it is right, they return it because it isn't right. So what you have to do is you have to front load, for lack of a better term, all of this love, all of this attention, lots and lots of questions. Ask questions till they're sick of your questions, right? Just keep going. And so here's the thing about a perfect purchase. So think about a purchase this way. So you start at my hands represent what you don't know. I'm trying to get it on the screen correctly here. What you don't know. So somebody comes in and they need to buy a dress. So every good question you ask gets you closer to a perfect purchase. You keep asking questions. Remember, the more you know, the better you serve. The better you serve, the more you sell. Till pretty soon you get together. I'm trying to make it appropriate on my screen. Pretty soon it is, you've asked enough questions so that they know it's perfect, you know it's perfect, they know that you know it's perfect. And so you've spent all that extra time to ensure that it is indeed a perfect purchase, that it is indeed the right dress. And if they feel that comfortable and confident because you've front loaded this whole process that way, then they're going to buy everything from you. And not only are they going to buy everything from you, they're going to tell all their friends. You're going to become a hero to them.
And this is exactly how we've built our business over 30 years. How would you, one more question. What sort of recommendation would you give for us for the customer that doesn't purchase on the first visit? So say that mom lives out of town and she's not available to be there on the first visit. What would you recommend for my sales staff in order to get that customer back on our schedule and back in the store?
So write this down. Everybody write this down because this little tip will make you a lot of money. Bomb, BOMB.com. And it allows you to make video messages easily in emails. And so the follow-up to this is, so they leave and you make a bomb video. Again, if you've done the good job, there's already a relationship. They just need to think about it. So you make a bomb video and you say, hi, Jackie, I just had such a great time with you, blah, 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 blah. Talk about the experience, talk about what they liked, talk about their wedding. Again, build that relationship. And, that kind of professional, personal, high touch follow through goes a long ways. If you just wait and hope that they come back, the probability that you lose that sale goes way up. If you reach out and not pressure at all, but, just follow up. Now, here's another little something. I worked with a jeweler in Three Rivers, Michigan. And, what he did was, especially with high-end purchases like wedding rings and things like that, is he said, look, I know this is a big decision. I know this is a lot of money, and I know you need to talk about it. I have an account with a really nice lunch restaurant down the street. And if you just tell them that you came from us, that, I'll buy you lunch. You talk about it when I buy you lunch. And he said his close rate went way up because what were they going to do? They were going to go to another jeweler to keep shopping, and he sort of stopped that process dead in its tracks. So
That's brilliant.
I know. I was like, that guy's name was Rocky. I'm like, Rocky, that's on, man. I love that. So that's a great question. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you
It
so
is.
much.
And I would just add on, we think, are we thinking about selling a policy or are we thinking about selling, the dress? And to Bob's point, I'm just framing it a little differently. He talked all about building the value, what can we do? We can bring more value to the relationship, to the sale by focusing not about saving ourselves from a return, but creating an opportunity in a relationship with a customer that's long term. Returns are in brick and mortar are like maybe 5%. And it's a little higher when there's really good selling, and I would always take the higher amount because you have a opportunity to resell. So it's what you focus on. And if you focus on what Bob talked about, building the relationship through the perfect sale, the perfect customer, taking care of them, building value in that experience, um, then your focus is correct and you don't have to worry about the returns. It'll always be a part of the business, but don't let that, but you'll do way more business by not focusing on the return.
And I want to say something also to you, Marie. I'm going to sort of challenge you here. I'm going to ask you to think about this because I was just talking about Maureen and her return policy. And, you know, what she said was she had she said before she joined our mastermind, before she started thinking about that, her return policy was quote unquote the industry standard. She said it was 7 days, it has to have tags, it can't be worn, blah, 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 blah. And then when she changed it, again, it changed everything. So it could be, Marie, that, so everybody in your industry does not offer a return. What if you did offer a return? How many addresses would actually be returned? And take that transaction and put it in the context of how many more dresses you would sell because you had this return policy. It's just something to think about.
That's a great point.
Marie, do you take what deposits do you take on your custom?
So, with my experience in 30 years in this industry and the possibility of weddings being canceled, and I'm actually a designer as well, and I'm on the wholesale side and the retail side. We have a retail store, but I sell wholesale to other bridal stores all over the world. And typically, we see weddings getting canceled. So, in the event that, you get a small percentage that do get canceled, they'll try to return the dress. So I would say, that maybe about 5% try to do that, but we right now they have to pay in full for their orders, and we do a
Right.
layaway policy in store.
So let's go back. Let's explore this a little more, Marie, because
Yeah, no, thank
this is
you.
an interesting exercise for me. So, okay, so somebody wants to return a dress, even if it's custom. So, assuming that they, didn't spend the night dancing away and spilling wine on it and, totally abusing your return policy, but say the wedding was, canceled. You now have a dress that still has value. So if you can resell it, even if you resell it at a deep discount. You haven't made the profit margin from that transaction, but you still have created that extra value and comfort and confidence because you're selling with that, because, hey, this is what we do that nobody else in the industry does. Those are powerful words. Nobody else does this are powerful words when you talk to a customer. It shows confidence in yourself.
So
And
the only issue we have is every dress pretty much has some sort of alteration.
Yeah,
So
so you have to do some alterations.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
and if you're
anyway,
profitable at the end of the year, you can have a charity event and give it to people who,
oh, there you go.
I mean, there's lots of opportunities if you just think about it differently.
Sure.
We've got a lot of other questions I noticed at the end there, but these are great. So thank you for that because they're applicable to other situations as well. But
Absolutely.
I noticed some other questions came in too, Nico.
Yep. So one of them was from Liz. She didn't quite hear the email service you said, Bob. So I went ahead and put it in the chat. It's
Good.
bombomb.com. So just go over to the
Bomb,
chat.
bomb, bomb.
So Andrea is saying a two-part question actually. So she has less than a 1% return now, but she's closing her store in mid-December and she's curious. She doesn't want to change it to no returns, all sale final policy. Do you think she should say exchange only or just give up the dollars and refund if they don't have something that they think is the perfect purchase?
Mark, you want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think yes, I think that you can do because you're closing. What you don't want to do is have this thing drag on forever. Closing sort of creates a different set of circumstances. Of course you want to be the right, you want to do business the right way, but at the end of the day, you, the lifetime value of your customers is being cut short in the middle of December. So you're trying to be very, very clear in your communication. So in this case, I would say, if they know that you're closing in middle December, I would make it all sales are final.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's no ongoing business, so
Yeah.
and people understand that. They know that
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
it's a different it's a one-off.
Yeah. All right. Go with our next one here. So Kim was asking, when should I bundle slow movers versus marking them down individually? And is there a metric that can tell me what approach to use?
Mark, you want to talk to that?
Well, I mean, I would do a bundle before I would do a markdown, or do one markdown and then bundle it with other things. So, I don't think you have to wait. I don't think there's a waiting time on it. And you get multiple sales. So, and it's fun, and it becomes fun for the customer. So I wouldn't wait. Well, there was a second part to that.
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. Yes, there was. What metrics tell her which approach to use? Or are there metrics she can look at that can tell her which approach to use?
Well, I would just have fun and experiment with it. I don't know a metric that would. I mean, the only metric I care about is sell through. So if you have items that you're not selling through, you can think in terms of weeks of supply. So if you've got, 50 weeks of supply of an item, you need to do it now. If we've got what, 5 or 6 weeks through till Christmas now, 7 weeks. So if you've got a 12-week supply of product, you probably want to think about marking it, bundling it or marking it down.
And I love what you said there, Mark. This whole idea of just be creative, have fun,
Yeah.
and trust your gut too. I don't know how long you've been in business, but I'm a big proponent of open to buy and management one services. But at some level, when you're shucking and jiving, it's the holiday season, you're coming down. What's not moving. You know what has to move. Trust your gut when things like that happen.
Yeah.
Well, on that vein, good segue to the next question. Julie is asking, I know you guys dove into this a little bit before, but maybe worth revisiting a little more in depth. Julie's asking, for bundle items, do you mix good sellers with the slow items that you're trying to move out, or do you just bundle slow sellers together?
Want me to take it?
Yep.
So again, there's no cut and dried rule. So if you bundle hot items with slow movers, you're going to sell more of them. Why? Because the hot item is going to be what drives the bundle. But if it could be that if you have two items that maybe you overbought, maybe they're good items, but you just overbought them, you can bundle them together. And it could be argued that they're both slow movers, but they're good items. And when they're bundled together, if make it a good deal, add some value to it, it's going to move. So I don't think to what we talked about, just a moment ago. I think it's just, look at what you have, look at what's selling, see what items are compatible, and trust your gut. You can create a bundle and put it out on the floor and give it 2 days. And if nobody's bought the bundle, you got a dog. Or if you create a bundle and put it out on the floor and you sell 6 of them in the first hour, you have a winner. So all of these things like bundling is not something that sort of fits under that management one open to buy umbrella, but it fits under this whole idea of you are a merchant. And when you're paying attention to what's going on the floor with your merchandise, you develop that sixth sense you develop the courage to say, hey, I'm going to try this. because when you try this, you may hit a home run. But if you have courage and you say, I'm going to try this, and it's a dog, well, don't beat yourself up. Take it off the floor, unbundle it, move forward.
Yeah, one one thing you can do too, because there's still time, if you want to reorder something because it's really been a good seller and you decide you really want to go a little deeper than you normally would, you can negotiate with the vendor and maybe get a better price. And then that becomes your bundle, and you've also got a built-in margin for markdown. So you've still got some opportunity to do some pretty creative things in your buy. So you're going to be creative on the sell side. You can be creative on the presentation side. You can also be creative on the buy side using your open to buy in ways that, benefit you and maybe you'll be taking something off the vendor's hand and get a better discount, ask for a deeper discount for it.
That's a great point.
Yeah. This next one, I think definitely for Bob. Love this one. So Maya's asking, how often should managers role play with associates, and how do we keep it from feeling awkward?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Maya. So, I like role plays, I do, but there's nothing like getting out on the floor and doing the deal. And, in independent retail and brick and mortar retail, there are so many transactions. So I would, again, you go back to this idea of you train them so they have this conceptual knowledge of what to do on the floor. And you might do some plays. And yes, it's a little awkward, but I would much rather see someone watch me and then go back and talk about what we did than do extensive role play. I would much rather watch, as a manager, I would much rather watch somebody sell on the floor and perhaps not make the total transaction value than me role play. So and this is a personal opinion. I know people who love role plays and do extensive role plays, but to me, it's kind of like sports, right? You can practice all you want, but until you get in the game, it's a different deal. Speaking to Somaya, you role playing with someone, they're going to be running everything through the filter of there's Maya, she's my boss, she's judging me. So, I would just let them get on the floor, pay attention, coach them gently and positively, and let them get their feet wet. Let them get some real experience. Would you
Bob,
agree
I'll
with that,
actually
Mark?
go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I believe in I think the problem, I like role playing. The challenge with role playing is it doesn't always work out well. So sometimes it's just better to walk a salesperson through a situation you've observed and ask them some questions on how they could do it differently, and then give them some ideas on how they could have handled something a little differently. It's a different format on role playing, but it's live and it's something real and it's something they just experience. So to the extent that you can be closer to when the situation actually exists, it will probably improve their ability and their skill in the next time that happens, because it always
Yeah, exactly. And the coaching technique is called self-review.
right.
So Nico, that and you can self-review great sales too. In fact, it's actually better when you do it with a great sale. So
Positive
wow, that was a
reinforcement.
great sale, Nico. So tell me what you were thinking. And then, well, that was a great question. Why did you ask that question? So you're doing a positive reinforcement. I think that's really important too, Maya. When you coach, so that Covey has this idea of the emotional bank account, and Covey contends, and I agree, that for every withdrawal, so if you're in this context coaching, for every correction of a bad behavior, there needs to be 10 positive reinforcements. So, you want to build that emotional bank account by really, watching what they do, rewarding when they do the right things. So when they do something incorrectly, they're not taken aback when you correct their behavior.
This was one that just kind of popped into my head as you're talking. Have you had any experience or have you heard of any customers that are using AI for role playing?
I haven't.
Yeah, we're starting to do it at Management One, where we actually use AI to learn how to be better and train it. So I think that opportunity, we're learning from it, but it's awesome in terms of learning about what's going right and what could be better in our wholesaling process. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity to explore that. And again, you have to go through the learning to train the models to train it correctly. But I think there's also going to be some new selling processes that are going to appear in the next year because of AI as well. But I think we're about 4 minutes out of time, so we'll
So
take
here's what I want to say about that. So, I love AI, and AI has a place in everybody's business. But let's just recognize you are local, independent, brick and mortar retailers. Your bread and butter is human interaction. And yes, you can get AI to do some role play and to train and things like that. But it is never going to be as good as when you, as the owner, look somebody in the face and says, you did this right, you could do this better. So, again, AI has a place for sure, but when it comes to but just be careful and recognize that you are in the most human of businesses, and don't lose sight of the fact that that is where your competitive advantages lie. And just don't lose don't get too caught up in AI when this human interaction is where we're making our money.
Yeah.
Well, one way to improve human interaction is to learn how to improve on it. And there are ways that AI can help expose those opportunities in ways that you may not have seen before. That's kind of what we're learning right now, but it's a process,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I think it speaks to your point too, Bob, when you're talking about there's a difference between practice and live gameplay.
right? Yeah, because
Yeah.
people freeze sometimes.
Yeah. Um, so let's see. Cherry is asking if my OTB is zero or overbought in a category, yet I'm sold out of certain better selling items. Do I reorder and buy more of the sold out items and just figure out what to do with the slow moving items, or can I just wait and hope the customer will buy a similar product we have?
No, you do exactly what you think you should do. You should mark down the slow moving items so you have the cash to reorder the stuff you need.
I was going to say that's a Mark question for sure.
So we have a few questions in here that are really more commentary, I think, for a different discussion about how digital and online marketplaces like Amazon are shaving traffic away and shrinking potential customer bases. So I'll save those for a different day, but I did want to save one for last, and I think this one's definitely Bob. Um, how do we get veteran staff to buy into new training when they think they already know it all?
That's a really great question. So the status quo is the status quo, and people love the status quo. And so, assuming that you want to grow and you want to create something better, you want a different version of your business, there always comes a place where there is sort of get on board or go away. And, I have had this conversation countless times. And, that's really where it is, that honest conversation. You can do it with coaching, you can do it with, so let's just use the example of the Retail Sales Academy, our sales platform, sales training platform. So you can put them through it. When after you put them through it, you have the opportunity to measure statistics, and you can create standards around statistics. And if they don't measure up to your standards, that leads to the disciplinary action process, which will sort of move them out the door. But at the end of the day, people are willing or they're not.
Yeah.
And you just sort of need to determine whether somebody is willing or not. If they're willing, it's a function of coaching. You just need to help them get better. If they're not willing, it's time for them to go. Release them back into the industry. It was interesting because in our Platinum Mastermind group, we have a sixth generation butcher in the UK, and he's also a coach. And I did a call with his coaching group. And a guy said that. He says, I have a butcher who has been working with me for 48 years, but he's not willing to change and he can retire in 4 years. What should I do? But then when I dug a little deeper, it wasn't that he wasn't willing. He just didn't understand the technology, right? He couldn't place the orders in the computer. So the advice I gave, this guy's a good guy. He's an asset to the company, but he wasn't doing the one thing that the owner wanted him to do. So what we talked about doing is, look, get together with you, him, somebody else, figure out a way to transcend this problem. So the first thing I would do is dig into the root cause of why aren't they coming along? And then that leads to the determination if they're willing or not. If they're willing, give them the training they need to thrive in the new, better version of your business. If they're not, it's just time for them to go away.
Love it.
100% agree.
Okay, good.
Well, gentlemen, I
What
know
a
we
great
are
way
on
to end
time
it,
here.
Mark. We agree.
Thank you so much, you guys, for sharing the candid thoughts. And I love the fact that we had so many questions from the audience. I think it
Yes, I
just speaks to
appreciate
the
it.
fact that we should probably do another session again in 2026.
I would like to do
Absolutely.
that.
Thank you
Thanks
so
so
much,
much,
gentlemen.
Bob. It was great again. It's the time flies. I mean, oh my gosh, I can't believe we blew through an hour. So it's great.
Yeah, no,
Thank
I
you.
always enjoy talking to you. Thank you for having me, Mark. Thank you for having me, Nico. And again, to everybody who's here, thanks for being here and thanks for asking the questions. It's
And
really an honor that we get a chance to serve you.
have a great holiday season, everybody.
Go
Thank
get
you.
them, everybody.
Bye bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.